Wondering what's next in your business or personal life? Welcome to Success to Significance, Life After Breaking Through Glass Ceilings, a podcast dedicated to helping you with all of life's challenges, discoveries, and opportunities. Whether you're seeking a new career, retirement, or simply wanting to make an impact in your community or the world. Join Jen Du Plessis and her guests as they explore how to start, what to do when you're in the thick of a change or growth, and how to leave a mark in this world after breaking through your next achievement. You are moments away from the aha you've been seeking.
Welcome back to this episode of Success to Significance, Life After Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. I'm your host, Jen Du Plessis, and today on our show, we have a duo, a mother-daughter duo that I cannot wait to share about their story with you. And so we have Sharon Brown and Heather Hough, her daughter, Heather Hough. So welcome to the show, Sharon.
Thank you so much, Jen. It was so awesome meeting you and so much fun to be here. Thank you for having us and sharing us with your audience. We're excited.
My pleasure. So, and Heather, I know that you are on the other side of the world from us right now. And so we will have you on here in just 1 second as I just do a little bit of introduction. I just want to say, if you're listening to this podcast for the first time, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. And if you've been listening for a while, thank you for your patronage and continuing to listen to us so that we can bring beautiful, great stories that impact your life. And with that said, I want to share a little bit about how we met. So Sharon and I met at a networking event locally here, which is so odd for me because I'm not doing that very often. And I thought, well, I'll go to this one because it was at a winery and it's close. Right. And because of that, I thought, I'll go. And, lo and behold, I met Sharon and said, you have to be on the podcast. If you're willing and able, I'd love to have you on the podcast. So that's how we met. And so a little backstory here is that the reason I have you on the show is that you have published a book or about ready to publish a book that is just, I think, very adorable. And it's called A Heart of Gold, The Greatest Gift. And it's a children's book. And I want to just share what this book is about because our listeners, I know, will want to get a copy of this book and share it with for me, the first thing I said is I can't wait to share this with my grandkids, right? I'm really excited about that. But here you are, mother-daughter team. And, so mom's on the East Coast. And Heather, are you still in Hawaii or are you someplace else? Because I know you guys.
I have joined y'all now on the East Coast.
Oh, good.
I'm living in North Carolina and going to UNC, but I just moved from California. So it has really been a spectacular experience, and to be able to create connection with my mom by creating this book from across the country together.
Yeah. I think that's what's so neat about it is creating it. So I know that you both have a love of life, love of family, faith. There's a lot of parts to this, but tell me where this started. Where did this idea come from that you thought, well, we need to write a book? And then we'll tell everybody about the book, but where did the idea come from?
Awesome. So I'll start with that. Years ago, I started a nonprofit called Birthday Blessings, giving birthday presents to children in need. And Heather grew up in that. Her brothers did as well, selecting the gifts, wrapping, those kind of things. And it was just so much fun. We rarely ever gave a gift to a child. It was done through social services or what have you. But then just over the years, we thought, you know what? And I had written some kind of little stories down, things like that. And Heather said, Mom, we should make a book out of that and teach kids values instead of just a book about a birthday party. We would actually have it teaching values and make it interactive, because in our family, we were always about sitting down at the dinner table and sharing stories with each other about our day or, doing a variety of different activities. And so we just thought, wow, this would be a great opportunity for families to be able to do the same.
Yeah, I love that. So what is your background, Sharon, that you felt? Have you been a domestic engineer for years, as I call, right? Have you been that, or were you a teacher? What really propelled you to even write down the pieces that you wrote down in the beginning?
That's a good question. So I guess I was a domestic engineer for the first 10 years of my kiddos' lives, and then but I've always been entrepreneurial minded or spirited, and have always had a love of children. And so I think just pulling those together and of gift giving and just celebrating children's lives and people's lives is just so important, making them feel special. So I think that combined, and then Heather, I'll let her say, but she just has such a heart of gold herself and such a gifted heart.
That's beautiful. So Heather, yeah. So let's talk about that for you. So you're in school. You're a young millennial. We'll call it. Maybe not even a millennial anymore these days. I don't even remember what the age groups are, but you're doing this. And what is pulling and compelling you from a passion perspective that you felt that you needed to participate in this book and be able to give back?
Yeah, just we're totally birds of a feather who flock together, and children have always been a huge part of my heart. Birthday Blessings was my favorite after school activity, to run downstairs and play Santa's workshop, hand selecting the perfect presents for each kid and their wish list and wrapping it up, because I think presentation matters too. Yeah. But my mom really got us involved in volunteering a lot when we were younger. We would volunteer at orphanages, and I went to a Spanish-speaking orphanage in Nicaragua, and it was just so enlightening to me about the communication. So I felt like I knew these kids, even though I spoke their language so brokenly, because we were able to create that heart-centered connection. And as I grew and got older, I became a babysitter and a nanny for some of the most wonderful families. And now I'm also an ambassador with Work, Play, Love, which is an orphanage in Guatemala. So a dear friend of mine founded that over a decade, and helps with the girls part of the orphanage because only boys were included. And she said, I would love to also have their sisters be able to join them. And so I've also taught ecology classes at the Boys and Girls Club. And what I'm studying in school right now is sustainability. But I love to bring that in education to all of our young sprouts too.
That was funny. I was going to ask you, what are you studying, right? And if you told me I was going to, business management, I was going to say, no, wait, I don't get that. But that makes total sense. Yeah. That makes total sense. Okay, so let's talk about the book. So this is, and just kind of setting the tone. And I know, Sharon, you have a copy there to share with us, right, of the cover. So yeah, it's called A Heart of Gold, The Greatest Gift. And so it's about this little girl who goes to a birthday party. And tell us what happens, because, you see on the cover of the book, the party she's going to doesn't happen to be a party of other human beings. It happens to be a party of a lot of different characters. So tell us a little bit about, why it was a birthday party, and give us one example, because we don't want to give away the whole book, right? Give us one example of what you mean by, and I love this because I know what's going to happen, but of the values and the story behind, each one of those gifts. Give us one example.
Absolutely. So yes, so the picture is here, the cover, and as you can see, it's the little girl that has a birthday party, and she invites her animal friends. And when they come to the birthday party, instead of bringing a toy, they bring a gift of value, and they each go through an adventure to get to her. For example, the one I like to tell is about Luca the dog. So Luca got invited to the birthday party, and he accepts, and he's so excited. But then a day later, he gets invited to go bowling with the big dogs. And he's like, oh no, I've always wanted to go bowling with the big dogs. What do I do? And he has to wrestle and decide.
Yeah.
Does he keep his commitment or not? So he decides to still go to the party, and he brings with him the gift of loyalty.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so that's just an opportunity to talk about that. I was talking to a businessman, and he said, tell me about your book. And I told him that story. And he said, that just happened to me. And I said,
yes.
what do you mean? And he said, I accepted a business meeting for Friday, and then I got invited the next day to a better one. And I said, what did you do? And he said, I went to the better one. And I said, oh, I think you need our book.
Yeah.
He said, you're right, I do. And so he bought our book as soon as we got off our Zoom call. But yes, and then after the story about Lucas in the book, then there's an activity page where the children can talk with the parents or the teacher. They can write in there, examples about being loyal, and then they can also draw a picture. So yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And I didn't know about that part. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. And look, I think this happens every day. And even though it's a children's book, it's something that, if parents can do this with their children, they will learn as well, because we get into these habits, and I mean, it even happened with this podcast, not this episode, but with this podcast, we booked someone like on a Friday to be on the podcast on Saturday. And right before the podcast, they called and canceled because they had a travel thing. And I was like, well, didn't you know you had the travel thing yesterday? I mean, so because it does have a ripple effect when that happens, for at least for us in business, because, I planned for it. It's not like I just show up. I planned for it. I'm thinking about it. I'm doing some snooping, and I think, gosh, well, I guess I wasn't as important as whatever the next thing was that they weren't committed the day before when we scheduled it. Right. And it's ironic because I talk a lot about values in my coaching and in speaking, and one of my values is integrity and accountability. Right. Those two things are really, really important to me. So I love that you shared, that particular story. Why did you think that it was important to have animals in here as opposed to other children? I'm just curious about that, just from that standpoint. I love that you have the animals. It's just, I'm curious.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Heather, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. So I think the animals, they're just so fun and relatable because you can attach their value to like who that character is.
Like a
and
dog.
A great example, like the dog. And the great example is that we have a character who's a caterpillar and he develops tenacity to become a butterfly throughout the story, which is how he gets to the party. So some of these animals also use their specific animal superpowers too, to bring the gift into the party. And I really believe that experience is the best education. So I love what you said, Jen, about how parents can get a lot out of this too with their kids.
Yeah.
Because I think that no one's ever too old to be reminded of or inspired by their own heart of gold and their shining light within. It's like a muscle that we get to practice. And we feel better and everybody else around us feels better when we shine our light and put those values into practice. So we've come up with some pretty enriching activities throughout the book to guide that.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And so it really does bring the fact that, that these characters actually needed to be animals because I'm not sure how you would do a transformational child unless it were, a child that doesn't feel that they're feels like they're transgender or something. And I know that that's embarking on a whole other situation. So I love, that we use our gifts which is really our experiences, right? Our experiences and our gifts to be able to come up with solutions to ensure that we're at this party and that we're showing up in the way that is really the true us, right? The true value that we're bringing, not in just the attribute of loyalty or the attribute of change, for example, right? In the example of the caterpillar saying, hey, I know how to get there. I'll wait until I can become a butterfly, right? And then I can fly there. But I love that they're exploring, those things within themselves. And that's something that we have to do quite often. I ask people all the time, what are your values? It's the number one thing we start with my coaching. What are your values? And people actually respond to me like this. They say, family? Like it's a question. Right.
Oh, no.
Well, I don't know. Do you have conviction for that? Or are you asking me, should family be one of your core values? So what is your thought? What are your thoughts on how people could determine what their values are? So they're going to experience a multitude of values here. And they might, it is the way that we are. If you're a dog person, you might try to attach yourself to loyalty because you like the dog. If you like the giraffe, you might attach yourself to that particular value. And then it really is an ownership of the value, right? It's attaching yourself to something that you thought was really cool. So how do you find out your value? How do you all express that and try to share that with people? And really, and maybe through an activity, they're asking people is, hey, what is the value that I have?
Yeah. And I'm glad you asked that and I'm also glad that Heather brought up the part about the caterpillar becoming a butterfly, because the word that we focused on there is tenacity.
Yeah.
Tommy the caterpillar becoming a butterfly. So he's determined, he's motivated, he's driven, he's working hard to become that butterfly. And so the activity page is more about, how do you show tenacity? How are you tenacious? And in fact, our editor suggested we change that word for a children's book and we make it determination. But we said, wait a minute, part of this is also learning a new word, and
Right.
vocabulary is important. So
That's true.
so we thought that would be really cool. But I think what I love so much about our book is that the parents or the teachers and the child are working together on this. For example, in Giraffe, Carl, he brings the gift of positivity. In the activity page, it says, a grateful heart is the beginning of positivity. So what are 3 things you're grateful for?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That starts the conversation about having values. Luca, who's the dog, and loyalty. It's like, honor your commitments. And as you were saying about business commitments, it's also about friends. If you commit to a friend to meet for a glass of wine or to go to a movie or something, and at the last minute, they say, I can't come. I mean, except for something extreme, like they're sick or they really can't, something changed. But if you're just not honoring your commitments, people aren't going to want to keep making commitments with you,
Right.
and scheduling time with you, whether it's a friend or a family member or a business person. I think just in discussing values with each other and with teachers, and guidance counselors are excited about the book. So, and then in the back of the book, there's a final activity where the child can actually talk about what makes their heart a heart of gold, and they earn an award that's in the back of the book.
Oh,
Their teacher gave them. So it's definitely not the kind of book you give to a child and say, go to
Here,
bed
read
and
it.
read this.
Write this, or I'll read it for dinner, or not dinner, but before you go to bed. Yeah. A couple of other quick questions. And I want to make a comment on something too, is, a colleague of mine, Dr. Greg Reed, who is the founder of Secret Knock. He's also a publisher. He published my book, Impact. And he learned an acronym that's in the book. And so I'm going to give credit to him, but he also learned it from someone else. So that person, I don't really recall who it is, but the acronym is CPC. And at first, when I did that, I go, is that PCP? Because that sounds like that, right? It's CPC, and it's clues, patterns, and choices. And I use this quite frequently, when I'm talking to my students, when I'm speaking, and of course, my students are adult entrepreneurs that I'm coaching. But, I think what you're pointing out here is these clues, these patterns, and these choices that people are making. So a clue is someone who shows up late is a clue.
Mm-hmm.
When they show up late every time, it becomes a pattern. And then your goal then is to make a choice whether or not to continue with that relationship.
Right.
Right. And that, I think, is exactly what you're saying. If all of these people or all of these animals and characters had all made other choices, the main character whose birthday it is would have been really sad. Right. And it would have been defeating, and they'd question themselves, and their confidence level would go down. And all of this can be applied to adults. Every one of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what the book is also about, so the animals bring their values. Well, that's the gift they give.
Mm-hmm.
Those values, there are 5 of them in the book. Those values create in Sam, our birthday girl, a heart of gold.
Yeah.
So by having those, and what we say in there is that, you know what, these are the best gifts ever. They don't wear out. They don't break down. They actually grow when you give them away.
Yeah.
You can keep giving them. So it's not just a toy that's going to batteries die or get thrown away, or you're going to grow out of. I mean, like I said, the gentleman that I was on the Zoom with, the businessman, he was probably, I don't know, 60. So this is it's a spread. It's a wide age range of
Well, and that's the next question that I wanted to ask you is, what age is this book for? And I know you're going to tell me everybody, because we all learn from it, but if we're going to gift this to some children, so those that are listening on this call, they're saying, hey, I've got children, I've got nieces and nephews, grandchildren, there's some people at my church, this would be great for me to give to my employees who have children. I mean, it can go on and on, right? We could all read. I mean, heck, I read Oh, the Places You Will Go by Dr. Seuss in a sales meeting all the time. because I love that
Oh,
book
yeah.
for sales, right? And so, when people are thinking about where can I apply this, who is this good for? I know you're going to say everybody, but for children, what is the good age that you think that this has such an impact on children as they're learning core values?
That's a great question. And what I usually tell people is the age range of about 3 to 11-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, wow, that's a big age spread. And I say, well, yes, because all watercolor, they're beautiful, story for the younger kiddos. But then as you get older, one of the values is unconditional love. What does that mean?
Yeah.
I know you love your cell phone. I know you love your French fries. Is that unconditional love? Let's have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine has 2 boys that are 8 and 12. And I said, oh my gosh, this is perfect. Because when you read one of these stories at the dinner table, and then you start talking about what does that value to you, the 8-year-old is going to have a completely different answer than the 12-year-old. They're both valid, and they both offer discussion among the parents. So
right. And especially
I would say
preteen. Yeah, it's the preteen, and making sure that the preteen is, set for life. And it's funny you say that, because a lot of people, I'd say to my husband and I, like, how did you raise these beautiful, adult children that I have that are now 35 and 33 and married and have grandkids? And of course, we always say values, right? We're always saying values, but we did set it up, as they started becoming a little more defiant in the preteen, we said, look, the bottom line is you can do whatever you want. I'm still going to love you. So stop trying. Stop trying to do all these crazy things, because I'm going to love you anyway. But it's your decision how our relationship will be in the future. If you put lack of trust actions into what you do on a daily basis, then you will have privileges taken away. And over time, that's going to affect our relationship as you become an adult. And so it's up to you for how this relationship is going to go. And I really put the ball in their court. And, and that's why we all have such a very tight, foursome of the 4 of us. Even though we have in-laws there, we're still really tight. So I think that that's an impressionable time. No question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the younger kiddos, what do they say that, how does a young child spell love? It's Time.
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
You're spending time with them. It's not buying a toy and saying, see ya, but it's that interaction and that time you're spending with them that is so valuable and so important. We also have a preschool in the Northern Virginia area that is super excited about using our book as a course curriculum in the spring. And that's going to be really fun, because we've got coloring pages they can send home with the parents, and they can do at home. They've also, they can do interactive activities at school, talking about the different value and focusing on that. And then they want to gift each kiddo that's graduating to go to kindergarten with a book to take with them. So
and a certificate, right? And a cute little certificate and a little graduation ceremony. Yeah. How fun is that? I love that. Yeah. Love it. Okay. So how do people get the book? Now, is it published now? Because I think when you and I talked, you were almost getting ready to publish it. So I imagine it is, but how do people get the book right now?
So they can go to our website, which is heartofgoldforkids.com.
Okay.
And that's the best place to go right now. They will be pre-ordering the book. We are self-publishing, which is so exciting and has just been a really fun thing to do with Heather and, putting all this together. But they can go there and pre-order the book, and they will have the book, by the end of December. So.
Oh, awesome. Is it going to be out before Christmas, do you think?
We're hoping, but we're not making that promise. For those that want to give it as a Christmas gift, of course, we have a very special certificate that we can give to them that they could still wrap and put under the tree and then celebrate again when it comes.
Of course you do. Right. Of course you do. I love it. I love it. Okay. So as we finish up our time together today, what would you like to leave with the people that are listening, that is poignant and really drives in the need for them to, reach out and get this book, pre-order the book, get as many as they can. Imagine when you have your release, are you going to be doing the 99-cent special or anything like that when you release?
Oh, I don't know. We hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about that in the green room. Yeah. Cause I don't want to good here. But yeah, but no, definitely go in and pre-order. And then so I'm just going to let everybody know, come back to this podcast, right around Christmas, because, if they are doing some kind of special, for the release, we'll go ahead and put the link in and make sure that the link is in here so that everyone can go on the same day and get it, because that's how you get to #1 status. So yeah, that's cool. So I love that. Okay. So what would you like to leave with those that are listening? Maybe a mantra or quote or a poignant thought. And Heather, we'll let you go first.
Okay, thank you. I just want to share that this story, A Heart of Gold, The Greatest Gift, is so much more than just a storybook, because it's something that children can really bring to life and do with their bigs, so that everybody can get something out of it. Beyond the family, it can be in the classroom as well, something that teachers can do with their students. And it may be cliche to say, but the younger generation is our future leaders. And so to equip them with emotional intelligence and the confidence and trusting who they are and knowing the gift that they can give to the world, I think is priceless. Yeah, beautiful. I love it. And Sharon, how about you?
So I think it's really important, be intentional. So as you know, and our book certainly gives people the opportunity to spend time together. We've seen, I would say, a COVID perk is that a lot of families have gotten closer together. They spend more time together, and it's kind of been forced on them. But oh my gosh, they're like, wow, I'm getting to learn my child and learn who they are. And our book certainly sets that up to be able to kind of guide people through that. But be intentional. Be intentional with conversations. Be intentional with people where you are. So when you're talking to your children or to your parents or anyone, be present, be in the conversation. I just think that's super important.
I do too. Being present. Being present. It's a gift, right?
It is. It is.
Being present is a gift. I say that all the time.
Yes.
It definitely is. Well, ladies, I want to say thank you so much for sharing this really cool story. Obviously children are important to everybody. I hope, children are important to everybody. And I just thought that this was something really unique, new and different. One of my friends is Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote Soup for the Soul, and his wife, Crystal, they have a great book out called Ask right now. They've been on this podcast as well. And, he holds a record for the most number of books sold in the world. And I cannot wait to tell him about this book. I cannot wait to tell him about it, because I think he's just going to go crazy about it. So for those of you that are listening, please click on the link, get yourself a pre-order the copy, and know that when it comes out, share it with as many people as you possibly can. You never know. You might even learn from your spouse. It might even, if you don't have kids in your life, you can do this with your significant other and learn about them as well. So that's what I'm hoping to do with my husband. Hey, let's read this together. So again, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today. And I wish you all the best in this endeavor of you getting this out into the big bad world. And thank you so much for creating this and having the tenacity, right? I had to think of the word, the tenacity the tenacity to push forward and self-publish this book to share with others, to help their lives as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We're honored to be here.
Absolutely. So again, everyone, thank you so much for listening into this episode. Be sure to grab the link to pre-order the book. And thank you for taking the time today and, for sharing this book and helping others be successful in what their endeavors are as well. And I look forward to catching you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Success to Significance with Jen Du Plessis, the #1 podcast for people wanting to give more value and make an impact. Loved this episode? Be sure to subscribe right now at www.jenduplessis.com/S2S for more stories, strategies, and thoughts to help you gain significance and success. And if you like what we're doing, don't forget to give us a rating and review so we can continue to bring you the best content possible. Join us next week for another breakthrough episode. Thank you for listening.